Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, I have a special guest, Marcie Towle, a fellow colleague in the Nurtured Heart World, advanced trainer. If you're on the Facebook page, you've probably met her because she is so present and generous with her willingness to be there for the people on the page, answer the questions, share incredible recognition and wisdom and insight. And I am excited because I think that I personally am curious, but also from the little bits and pieces I've heard, Marcie has an incredible nurtured heart story. So I would love to just turn the mic over to you, Marcie. Tell us who you are and how nurtured heart is in your life today, and then a little bit about how you got into it in the first place and what that story was like.
Okay, well, who am I? I love that question. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner. Outside of my Nurtured Heart business, I've owned a bike shop with my husband for 30 years now. Can you believe it? Um, and I now also have my Nurtured Heart coaching business, Dragonfire Coaching. Wish there's a story about why it's named that. Maybe we'll get to it. Maybe we won't, but there's a reason. Um, you asked how I got here, what brought me into Nurtured Heart and why I do it. So I got blessed with two really amazing, really intense little people when my kids were little, and they're grown-ups now. But I was homeschooling them, which is not easy ever with any kids, but with intense kids, it's especially exciting. And at one point, someone on a homeschool forum that I belonged to, I reached out with some horrible problem behavior, whatever was happening during homeschool. And she's recommended Howard Glasser's book, Transforming the Difficult Child. So I got a hold of it. I read it. I was implementing it. In hindsight, not very well. I didn't really, I don't think I understood very much about it. And I saw a difference. I did. But I got to be honest, I didn't stick with it because it was so much different than anything that I'd ever been exposed to before. And I'll be honest, I felt really weird telling my kids all those recognitions about what was awesome about them. It just felt so weird. And they also used to have a point system in the older versions of the books, and it was so much work. And I think I really sort of mistakenly thought the point system was Nurtured Heart. I don't know. But all that to say, it didn't last for very long. I gave it up. And things kept going on being intense. They kept being hard. They kept getting harder. And then guess what? My kids turned into teenagers. Woo! And then it was really hard. So I was pretty desperate. I was pretty desperate for something to work that wasn't just more of the same stuff I was trying over and over again. And I remembered how different Nurtured Heart was. And I thought that's got to be the ticket because it's the only thing different, but really different. So I got myself a coach and and my husband went with me. So I was really fortunate in that to have support. He was also full on board that something needed to change. And so that was the start of our Nurtured Heart journey. And
What you just said about starting and stopping and feeling weird about the recognitions right there is just so relatable. And so many of our stories. There's a lot about Nurtured Heart that feels weird and that feels like socially inappropriate, like saying reset when your kid whacks another kid and not, getting involved more than that or yeah, saying these long-winded recognitions. My kids actually told me, they're like, Mommy, you're not allowed to recognize our friends. It embarrasses us. Like they don't want us to say that.
before my daughter's wedding, she pulled me aside specifically a couple months before the wedding to say, Mom, I need to ask you a favor. I know that Nurtured Heart means so much to you, and I see how happy you are now that you live this way, but could you please not do it at my wedding.
What I'm interested in hearing more about is that transition from all of those hard behaviors and really feeling like something needed to change to implementing the nurtured heart. I can't imagine that it was a smooth sailing. What was that implementation like?
Oh my goodness, that is such a great question. No, it was not easy. It was not easy, not one bit. Um, I will say that my son liked recognitions and gobbled them up from the start. My daughter hated it. And so there was a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance, took a lot of endurance to keep going, and a lot of going back to my coach and saying, well, here's what she says when I do this. What should I do? And she helped me with all of that. And, um, you talked about saying reset when your kid pushes somebody, right? Okay, so now they're teenagers. It's kind of hard to just say reset. So the reset was it was a challenge. It was, and in fact, I didn't think I was doing it right for the longest time. I didn't think I was doing it right because they were literally behaviors and acting out on a teenage level that I couldn't just say reset. So now I understand that I was doing it right, and that sometimes a reset looks like a simple statement of that's not okay, or just not giving energy to something. There's a real energetic level to it with a teenager, especially, I think. But that's the way it is with our adult relationships too, right? I mean, socially, if I say something that crosses your line, you're probably not going to say, Marcie, reset, but you're going to react in a way, and I'm going to know, and I'm going to go, oops, I crossed a line with Mussi. So there's a aspect of that to it. And yeah, it was challenging, and really I just had to keep going. And the seeing a coach really helped keep me accountable to not sliding back to my old ways. I felt like quite a few times she'd say, okay, Marcie, I think you got it. I think you're doing great. And I'd say, yeah, I am. And I'll be back next week because I knew that just having that weekly check-in kept my mind in the right space, kept me focusing on what was going well, kept me not energizing negativity, kept me resetting myself when I did energize negativity, because we all do. We all slip, we all get off our game. The reset is for us as well. It's a gift to us. And so just having someone that I could talk to that helped me do that. And I think a good friend can help you with that too. Since that time, uh, my best friend went and got nurtured heart trained. She's an advanced trainer as well, and it's so awesome just to have someone else who speaks the language. And sometimes it's good if it's not your spouse, because sometimes it's really hard to be nurtured heart with your spouse even when they're fully on board. So
Yeah, so I'm curious about what kept you in it. Did you see a transformation or was it just
it was slow. It was slow. um the challenges at home were great enough that I didn't have any other option. Nurtured heart was the only option that I saw, and the reset was the only consequence that I could give. I had nothing else. And so I had to keep going on faith. It was either keep going on faith that nurtured heart was going to work, or it was going to be a lost cause.
so when you say you had no other choice, were there things you had already tried before Nurtured Heart? What led you to believe that you had no other choice?
Okay, so one of my children would not accept any consequence of any kind. It was just like, oh yeah, well, good luck, try and make me. That child was seeing a therapist who at one point said to my husband, well, can't you just ground them? And my husband said, well, I could say the words, but when they walk out the door showing me the finger, then what am I supposed to do? Go up, follow them out and drag them back by their hair? Well, no, you can't do that. That'd be abusive. Exactly. So really, really, literally, the reset was the only consequence that we had any power over.
Wow, it's so good to hear you say this. It's so fascinating because it's a different aspect than when you're talking with little kids. Because with little kids, you do feel like you have all this power, like you could do more. Um, the reset almost feels limiting because it's like, that's all I can do. Like, I can't do anything else. Like, how are they going to learn, you know? Because we still believe that we could somehow control them. Um, but what I hear you saying is that the reset was actually freeing you from the unmanageable powerlessness of not having, not being able to do anything because you could actually be consistent with something. It actually gave you a tool that you could use. You could be consistent about the reset. You can control yourself. You can control where your energy's at, and you can say that reset as often and as needed as possible. So that's a whole side of reset that is so cool, and so empowering that we might not be able to control someone else's behavior, but we can always control our own. And that's really all Nurtured Heart is asking of us, is that we are clear and is that we are contributing to the relationship in alignment with the values and the rules and the clarity that we have. It's really all about us. It's not about them. And that sets up a framework that is possible for them to understand, trust, and feel open enough to maybe stick their fingers and toes in when they're ready, you know, as their inner wealth is growing. So, wow, that's really, I feel like that's a big epiphany right there with the reset actually being something you can do where other consequences weren't working.
And that's the beauty of Nurtured Heart, too. It doesn't matter what behavior your kid throws at you, and it doesn't matter whether they're 10 or 20. It's still the three stands. Stand one, no, I'm not going to give you my energy around that. Stand two, yes, I'm going to connect and I'm going to see you and I'm going to see all your moves in the right direction, even the baby steps. And I'm going to tell you about the greatness and the beauty that I see in you and what a special, unique individual you are. And stand three, absolutely clear. And the older your kids get, and mine are in their 20s now, so my stand three really is only about me now. And what am I gonna support? What am I gonna give to? What am I gonna not give to? What am I gonna energize? What am I not gonna energize? It's really just about me. They're adults. I don't get to control their behavior in any way. What I get to control is how I respond.
I can't imagine that that's an easy thing to do. Like, you're human, I think, last I checked. Like, with your kids, you're in the trenches. You haven't seen, you said it was super slow. You haven't seen the transformation yet. They're teens, they're doing things, um, and they're still doing them. And you're trying to do this Nurtured Heart. How were you able to, like, welcome them back with that smile? Like, we talk about the video game and how in the video game it's so right side up for kids, and it's so it propels them to success just because of how there's zero grudge and resentment. They can get out and then they're out, but then when they press start over, the game's really happy to see them. And like, imagine a game that punished you by stopping to have color, stopping to have sound, or making level one harder every time you got out. I wouldn't want to play that game, you know? So it's just this like, welcome back. We're so glad you're here. Let's keep going in a relationship. I see all your greatness. Like, how did you, as a human, as a mom, allow yourself to be open to the time in when so much time out was happening, when so much negativity was still happening?
So that's such a great question. And I think there's two sides to it. The first thing I want to say is sometimes, depending on what the issue or the behavior is, or my own state at the moment that it happens, or maybe I got surprised by it and I'm not ready to be in that time in place, I stop and reset and breathe and try to keep, well, I just work on my own reset. And if I get out of one of those situations and I have not energized negativity, even if I didn't find anything great to recognize in the other person, but I've been successful in my own keeping it to myself and resetting until I could just not energize the negativity. Victory, man, I won. I celebrate that big time. I celebrate the victory. And then there's always the opportunity to re-examine the situation from a place of being reset and say, what did I see there that I could recognize? What greatness was happening there? And then I go back. I always go back and tell them, even if it's days later, I go back. Maybe it's even just a text. You know, the other day when such and such happened, I really missed telling you that I saw you did this and this is what it says about you. So that's one. And then I'll say over here on the other hand, I did a lot of pre-setting, meaning I flat out knew I was going to be in for it and it was going to be rough and I was going to be there and be ready to not energize negativity. And I was going to have great big greatness goggles on and find greatness even in the middle of things that I really don't appreciate. And I'll say it, I'm a rock star at that. I really learned how to do that. I can do that. But there are times when I'm too, I don't know if I want to use the word triggered. It gets used so much. I'm too activated myself to do that. And we all have those times. And I think we all have our certain issues that we might be more likely to be activated around. Whereas the other thing you throw at me, I mean, fine, throw it at me. Let me have it. I'm going to throw your greatness right back at you. But this one over here, I got to reset.
So I hear you saying so much about like really personal accountability. Again, that thing of I can control myself, where my response to that escalation and that fear, that resentment, that frustration is always like, wait a second, let me manage my own energy here, get myself back to equilibrium, get myself back to dignity, integrity, my own values. Like, let's do me. And it's so honest and respectful to parent like this in such a beautiful way, in that what kind of role modeling are we doing when our kids are messy and then we're like, well, then I have permission to be messy because you're so messy, you know? And of course I'm going to be messy, but in belief and in philosophy, like saying that my responsibility in parenting is to try to clean up my own mess before I expect my kid to clean up theirs is such a respectful, mature, adultish type of way of living, like to live with that accountability. And
I think that meeting with the coach was a big part, at least of my being able to preset, because what I could do with my coach is sometimes I would go in and tell her, oh, this kid did this thing this week and that thing. And I would be thinking these things were really pretty awful. And I'd just be pretty proud of myself for not giving it energy, right? And she would turn around and tell me, well, then what great does that show about your kid? And she would tell me. And I think that's why I can sit here today and say, I can be a rock star at that, because I had somebody who was really, really, really a rock star at that showing me. And over so many times, Mussi, I can't even tell you how many times I'd be like, okay, this one did this, and here's how I navigated it. And then she would just come right in and show me how my kid was actually showing their greatness of self-care, or their greatness of care for humanity, or connecting with other people from, like I could tell you stories, but I won't.
My goodness, I love that. She totally shifted everything around. It's like that's the first level that is so big, guys, everyone listening, to be able to reset myself, to not at least express my activation at the negativity, but then to like notch that up, to not even see it as negative. Like absolutely no to negativity. Like there is no negativity. This is some form of greatness. And until I see it, I haven't looked hard enough. Like there's something there to be able to shift and have to actually see the greatness. I think that is a huge piece of the the ability for this to be sustainable,
Yes.
sustainability of nurtured heart. When I start to actually see the greatness in everything, it's sustainable because I'm not just white knuckling and not yelling. I actually can appreciate my kids. And so I might say reset, and I might be resetting myself too because I don't really like what's happening and it's hard. At the same time, I'm like not only just telling myself and forcing myself to believe that this kid has worth, but I'm actually proud of them too and think they're awesome. I would like to close out a question for you. Um, if you could talk to, you know, yourself back in the day when everything was really hard, um, or tell mom who's in that place right now with their teens, their super challenging teens, what would you tell yourself or what would you tell them?
I would say absolutely trust the process, even when it doesn't look like you're making progress, because our progress, especially in these tough situations, it's not linear. And it's not even necessarily one step forward, two steps forward, one step back. It there's there's progress and there's regression and there's opportunity to keep dialing in the stands in all of that. And yeah, trust the process. And this one's super hard for parents, right? Let go of your whatever outcome you're attached to and holding on to. I would really encourage parents to be open to whatever outcome because their kid is full of greatness. They're going to express it in different ways than you envision for them. And our job as parents really is not to make them into who we thought they were going to be. It's to let them make themselves into who they were meant to be and love them, appreciate them, celebrate them, and be so filled with pride and joy over who they are. And I really believe that's what can happen. That is what has happened for me. And the side note benefit I'll add for that parent who's dealing with a kid that things are so hard, they turn around. And that naturally happens, I think, with most of the time, not every time, but a lot of times, teenagers are just tough. They just are. It's their job. And then they grow up and they're okay again. But my kids are more than okay. My kids have this amazing relationship with me. Like we've never lost that. There's never been a time where they're like 18, 20, 21. I don't need to talk to you because I know everything. My kids call me and ask, Mom, what do you think? And or they just call me just to vent sometimes. And then I get to ask them, are you asking what I think? Or do you just want to share? And so nurtured heart forms relationships. And at the end of the day with your teenager, you can't control them. You got to give that up. But if you can be in a position where you have a relationship where you can influence them, man, you won.
I just got chills, Marcie. That is so powerful. So many epiphanies in that. Thank you so much for getting on here and sharing your story, sharing your strength, sharing the hope, um, and your insight and wisdom. And for those of you that want to have your hand held and have those weekly check-ins and get that support and those greatness goggles, Marcie does this, right? Marcie is coaching parents, one-on-one dragon coach,
Dragon Dragon
fire,
coaching. Yeah.
dragon fire coaching. I'll put all the info in the link. I do it as well, but I think you know that already. And there's a lot of us out there, so you don't have to do this alone. It takes a village. You were never meant to have to do it alone. Um, we're all in this together. Thank you, Marcie, and
Thank you.
you all next time.